Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian. I'm streaming to you from beautiful Victoria here in Western Canada. I hope that all of you have had an awesome week, and I hope that you're looking forward to a fantastic weekend. This class, everybody, is an IELTS Task 1 writing about power sources, hydroelectric, nuclear, wind, solar, done as a table. For those of you studying for the academic IELTS, in your writing section, task 1, you will look at a graph, chart, diagram, or potentially a table. Okay, a table has as good a chance as any to crop up on your IELTS exam. Students, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com. For academic IELTS, visit us there. For the general IELTS, check us out at gieltshelp.com. Both of those websites have incredible materials to help you improve and pass your IELTS exam. Let me just show you real quick. This is the academic version of our website here. These websites power these live lessons. As those of you in the last class found out who are doing reading with me, click this big red button that's just right above my head there to join our premium IELTS package. It's a one-time payment, lifetime access. All you have to do is click that button, fill out the form, and you are good to go. You can enter the discount code EASY9 for a 10% discount off the premium package. The price is different in different countries, so check it out, look at how much it costs in your country, and make the payment, get going on your IELTS studies. For general IELTS, it's gieltshelp.com. Again, big red button, enter the code EASY9, and you are good. Students, we have apps for sure, of course. Academic IELTS Help, General IELTS Help. Those apps link to the websites, so you learn in an integrated way. And we have Instagram, IELTS_AHelp, GIELTS Help for vocabulary, and lots more. Admin at aehelp.com and Adrian at aehelp.com. If you have questions, send us an email. Okay, to those email addresses. On Amazon, we have our books, our exam books, so you can get them in paper versions as well. AE Helps Academic IELTS, G Helps General IELTS. If you would like to order the actual book, physical book, I should get one so I can show everybody that's the book. Okay. All right, so right now, task 1 writing, then tomorrow we will have speaking and more speaking, so part 2 and part 3. This class is a subscribers chat class, so welcome Mina, Arvi, Emma, I'm Nadi, Syed, Do, all of our subscribers. It's free to subscribe. It's a good idea to subscribe. So to join this chat, all you have to do is subscribe. Of course, welcome to our members, Dylan, Angel, Domenico, nice to have you. Alexi, nice to have our moderator in the class as well. Just one more quick tip and help, new video for you. Here it is. Check that out. It's a speaking video. I've put this into the chat so you can take a look at that at a later time. That is for you, that is there. All right, let's get into some task 1 here. Writing section, okay? So in the IELTS, when you're doing the sitting part of the test, it's almost 3 hours long, okay? You're going to do listening for about an hour. You're going to do reading for an hour, okay? And then after the reading, you do the writing. The writing has 2 tasks. Task 1, 20 minutes. Task 2, 40 minutes. Task 2 is worth about 65%. Task 1 is worth about 35%. Start with task 1. It should be the easier task to get you going, as long as you know what you need to do. It's also the shorter task, okay? Your first step, everybody. Now, this is interactive. I'm looking at the chat. I've got the chat right there in front of me. So if you have questions about writing, ask me, okay? I'm happy to have questions. I can even put them up on the screen so everybody else can see. If you have a question, it means other people have a question too. All right? Maybe the same question. So first step first, let's read it. IELTS task 1, writing. You should spend about 20 minutes on this task. Don't spend more time. You need 40 minutes for task 2. Okay, when you're out of time, that's it. You got to hand in the exam. It finishes, right? Okay. Arvi, I am feeling better than yesterday. Thank you. Alexi, there are no breaks between the two parts. You get 1 hour for the writing. It's one continuous hour without any breaks. I took a 5-minute break to go to the washroom in the writing part. Not a good idea. I wish I saved that 5 minutes to review. All right. Okay. You can see that Carolina is also helping people answer some questions. So our moderators are great for that as well. Okay. All right. So we read the question. The following table shows the percentage of electricity generated in several countries according to different types of power sources. Report the main features and make comparisons where relevant. Awesome. So we've got countries, we've got power sources, we've got a table. Let's take a look. Here it is. There's your table. Sipping on a warm tea. I hope everybody else is staying hydrated and happy. All right. So we look at the table. We look at the rows. Okay, that's called a row. And we look at the columns. That's called a column going down. Know these words. Write them down. Column has a silent N at the end. So rows go from left to right. Columns go up and down. Okay. What do you call that? What is that called? Anybody? The individual parts there? What is that? It's called a cell. That's right, Amra. Very good. It's a cell. Yeah. You can call it a box too. Cell or box. Okay. But technically in spreadsheets it is called, or in statistics, it's called a cell. What else is called a cell in biology in your body, right? The cell with the nuclei. Okay. All right, cell phone. There's another cell for you. Okay, so here we look at the title of the first row. So you should always analyze a table from left to right, top to bottom. Okay, very important. This is the first tip, and it's an important one. It might seem simple, but it's an important tip that you should not miss. Okay, so before you write, okay, so your first step is to read the question carefully, okay, and then analyze. Look at the table. Always assess from left to right, then up to down, okay? That's the logic, okay? So here, of course, we're looking at the power sources first. So we've got nuclear, we've got coal and ignite, okay? We've got petroleum products, we've got hydro and wind, and we've got others. So we've got 5 basically, right? We've got nuclear 1, coal 2, petroleum 3, hydro, wind, and other, which could be who knows what, but other. Okay. And then here we have the countries. So we've got Malaysia, we've got Singapore, we've got Thailand, we've got South Korea, and we've got Japan. All right, now we have all this data here, but we're not looking at the data just yet. Okay, we're going to look at that later. We want to start our essay first. So we're looking at just the details here at the top level, which are the titles of the rows and the titles of the columns. All right, now before I get going, okay, there's another very, very important step that you should take with a table. And this, most students will learn in junior high and high school in Canada, US, UK, Australia, and in many other countries as well. Okay? Tables, spreadsheets can be converted into graphs and charts. So if anybody has used Microsoft Excel or Google Spreadsheets, you know that you can convert those into graphs and charts. So here's another very, very, very important tip for this so that you can write effectively. Okay? This is tip number 2. Before you start writing, figure out what type of graph the table represents. Okay? Okay? You must do this to have an effective essay. Okay, in this case, so we've got the percentage of different types of power source for different countries. What type of graph would this turn into? So if I turn this into a graph, what would it actually turn into? Shushant, forget about predictions. That's silly. I would never do that. There's no predictions for tomorrow's exam. No strategies. Stick to those strategies and you'll do better. Okay, so yeah, Dylan says pie charts. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. Yeah, this would be a pie chart. Yeah, I would convert this into pie charts because it's percentages, right? Proportions. So that's what I would do. Yeah. Because you've got two nominal data, right? Bar chart would be better if one of the data were different amounts. Like if this were dollar amounts or something, then it would maybe be a better bar chart. But here we've got two nominal data. So we've got name data, the country names, and we've got the power names, right? So these would be pie charts, and we have percentages. Percentages, proportions are generally best represented as pie charts. So if we add 13 plus 5, right? Well, let's do it this way. If we add 19 plus 61, we have 80, 82, 87, 100. So this equals 100, right? That equals the whole, okay? So you can't see that, but that equals 100, that row. So each of these rows should add to 100, right? All of that should add up to 100, and I can see that. So all of these rows add up to 100, the total, right? So these are best done as pie charts, right? Because we're looking at 5 complete pies, okay? All right, so here, in this case, in this example, 5 pie charts would best visually represent this data. Okay, very important. All right, now, for task 1, what you need is you need 3 paragraphs, especially when it's one table like this, okay? So the structure, okay, 3 paragraphs. Overview, start with an introduction. Introduction, okay, overview, and an analysis, or analyses for plural, okay? Your introduction is paraphrasing the question with details. From the table in this case, okay? Now, AJ says no summary. That's right, AJ. We will have a summary. The summary will be included in the analyses, okay, with a short summary, with a summary sentence. Okay, yes, you should, AJ. Include a summary sentence, and we will do that in this case. So you're very smart. Yeah. Romelia says the table presented illustrates how electricity generation in different countries is distributed among various types of power sources. Okay, now Romelia, in this case, we want to include examples. So here, I would do it like this. Okay. So write your introductions, everybody. I'm going to do the same, and then we'll compare. Okay. So this table contains 6 columns and 6 rows, which include 5 countries: Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, and Japan. And this is where the computer-based is great because you can do this in a bit of a cleaner way. When I just wrote these countries, I realized something, because I'm always thinking about what I'm writing, right? So this table contains 6 columns and 6 rows, which include 5 countries. What did I just realize about the 5 countries? Anybody? Let's see. Anybody? So what's common about these 5 countries? There is, yeah, very good, Alexi. It's 5 Asian countries, 5 East Asian countries to be even more specific, right? 5 East Asian countries. Very nice. So this table contains 5 East Asian countries: Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, and Japan, and defines their power generation by percentages according to nuclear. Now, they are titles, so you can write them big, but not necessary. Coal and lignite, which I have no idea what it is, to be honest with you. Petroleum. Hydro and wind, or other. Okay? All right. So there is my introduction with a bit more detail. So why not, right? I mean, it's a fairly simple table. I'm certain I can write about 200 to 220 words. 150 is the absolute minimum for task completion. It is definitely okay to go over 150, not by a lot, but by a little bit, like let's say 25%, like 50 words, 60 words. Don't go less than 150. If you go less than 150, you will lose marks. Okay, so it's minimum. It says write at least 150 words. There's no maximum, but you do have to be careful not to go over the 20-minute time limit, and you do have to be careful to have good spelling grammar, so you don't want to write too much, okay? Many spelling mistakes will create problems. All right, so here's the introduction. It's a paraphrase with some more details. So this table contains 6. I don't say given table, it's okay, or presented table, just this table, right? Let's not be wordy. We want to use words effectively. We don't want unnecessary words. So this table contains 6 columns and 6 rows, which include 5 East Asian countries: Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, and Japan, and defines their power generation by percentage according to nuclear, coal, and lignite, petroleum, hydro and wind, or other. Okay, everybody clear on that? Nimesh says the information regarding the percentage of power production in 5 different nations by distinct sources is depicted by the tabular data. Yeah, Nimesh, but you're not giving me anything else than just paraphrasing. Okay, students, high band answers have details. Is everybody clear on that? So I'm giving more details here. I'm telling my reader right away what those countries are, what those power sources are, so my reader can think about them from the start, especially because I only have one table here. It's not a ton of information. I don't need to worry about having too much information, like with 2 tables or 5 different types of charts. So it's fairly straightforward here. Okay. All right. So far, so good. I see some thumbs up. Okay. Good. All right. So now I need the overview. Okay. What is the overview, right? Well, what is the overview? Overview. Overview is the most observable data, okay, by just looking with your eyes at the numbers, all right? So without too much detail, what is the most observable data or trend in the given table in this case, right? So here, okay, if I look at this in an eye shot, okay, so what do I notice? What becomes apparent right away? Okay, for me, there's kind of a very obvious feature that becomes apparent here. Okay. AJ says coal and lignite are more popular. No, I don't think so. Look at Thailand, South Korea, Japan. They don't use much of that. Amra says nuclear is the most common. I'm not sure, Amra. It does seem to have the highest numbers, but I don't know if that's very distinct. I mean, it's got more double digits, but it's also got some lower double digits. And if I look at other, Amra, then other arguably has even more. Okay. Alexi says petroleum products are not popular despite they're from Thailand. I don't think that's the main. Chani says the top 3 biggest consumption. No. Sarah says other is most used by other countries. I don't know, especially since other, we don't even know what they are exactly. Nah, Reza, I don't think that zero nuclear in Thailand is so important. So what? Thailand doesn't have a nuclear power plant. Big deal. We can mention that. I still don't think that's the most. Students, high band scores do require you to capture the information well, okay? And sometimes you have to really just think simple, all right? Here, I think what's most observable is different countries depend on different power sources. And each country seems to have some dominant dependencies and some low dependencies. So what I notice here, okay, is that Malaysia, for example, is highly dependent on mostly coal and then some nuclear. They're not really dependent on petroleum. What I notice here is Singapore is highly dependent on coal and other, and not so dependent on these ones. Thailand is quite dependent on petroleum, other, somewhat here, but not so much here. Okay. South Korea is highly dependent on nuclear and wind, but not so much these. Japan is highly dependent on nuclear and other, and not so much these, right? Alexi, that's right. There is no consistency between these countries. So each of these countries seems to have a different type of power source dependency. All right. We can definitely see that, right? So that's what you see. These higher numbers, they're kind of all over the place. Ignore that one, right? Okay, does that make sense? Everybody sees that, right? So good IELTS scores depend on your good interpretation. Okay, so let's jump into the overview here. All right. At first glance, it becomes apparent that each of these countries varies in their greatest dependency for generating most of their electrical output. Not only that, right? So, in fact, each country seems to have 2 or 3 primary dependencies and a couple sources that generate significantly less of the total, right? Does everybody see that? Okay, all right. Everybody should see that. Okay, that's the most important. If you're trying to focus on most and the least with this table, you are going to be in trouble. Your analyses are going to be all over the place. It's going to be awkward because you can see here, for example, that Japan has the highest dependency on nuclear, but then South Korea actually has nearly as much dependency on hydro and wind. And then you just have a lot of other numbers that seem to, Malaysia has the highest on coal and ignite, right? So these numbers just tend to be all over the place, all right? And it doesn't make sense to report it in that way. If I start going with highest and lowest, it's going to turn into a mess in this case, in my opinion. I would not like to hear a presentation on this table based on highest and lowest. Okay. Rather, what I would like to see happen is each country described on their greatest and their lowest dependencies. Okay. All right. So we can go through with these data and then actually do the deep analysis, right? Okay. So now that I have this overview, I can create a sensible analysis, all right? That's logical, that's structured, that's step by step. And I can see a lot of thumbs up. They're like, oh yeah, now I kind of get it, right? So interpretation, right? Your goal for high band scores in the academic IELTS for task 1 is to write an outstanding expository essay which uses good, accurate language and great interpretation of data. Somebody asked me earlier in the chat, how do I get at least a band 6? Write well. If you are just writing a template that you've learned from online and you make spelling mistakes, you're going to get a band 5. That's a promise. Okay? Examiners don't like templates, and they don't like a simple report that doesn't interpret data. They're looking for data that's being not just reported, but interpreted. Okay? So keep that in mind, everybody. All right. Parent says, sir, please teach me third or fourth, fifth, all those vocabulary. The proportions. Yeah, like half, a third. Yes, do. Templates are a big no. IELTS examiners are very familiar with the templates that are floating around on the internet because they see them used. And when they see that template being used 10 times, they know it's a template from the first sentence. Okay? So if you write the given table below, immediately the IELTS examiner's head goes, bing, template. Okay, they literally get a light bulb go off in their head. Template essay. So the given table below, bing, template essay. This table contains 6 columns. Oh, it's original. Good. Let's see what this person has, right? Okay, so the analysis. Okay? Or analyses. Take your points of comparison. Okay? So here what you want to do is identify 6 to 8 points of interest and report them in a structured way that reflects your overview. This is why it's so important that your overview is accurate and well written. It's an overview. It's not most and least. Most and least are often just points of interest, right? So an overview, students, is more than just most and least in most cases, okay? So this is not just most and least. That's an oversimplification. Okay, it's very important. So most and least, you're just one of a million. Okay, if you're writing most and least, you're just like the other guy and girl sitting the IELTS exam. This is the academic IELTS. It's used for university entrance. They need you to be more than just the average, right? Reza, what's so wrong with the template? It means that you're not using your own thinking. And the number one skill that is looked for in universities across the world is original thought. Okay? That's why. So if you want those high band scores, templates are not going to get you there. All right? Not in an easy way, that's for sure. Okay, so let's do points of interest. It's really simple here once you've identified this concept. So we can start with Malaysia, then Singapore, then Thailand, then South Korea, then Japan, right? So we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then points of interest, primary dependency on coal and ignite, which is the most out of any of these proportionally, right? So that would be my point number 1. And then nuclear second. Now, I wouldn't, even mention that too much necessarily, that nuclear is their secondary, because it's so distant. Okay. Now, 61 is nearly 2/3 of Singapore's power, right? Or sorry, Malaysia's power output. Be careful. Wrong information, even with good spelling and grammar, is considered a mistake. Okay. It's coherence mistake. So they are checking for accurate information. RV, do not use bullet points. No, you cannot use bullet points. Okay, good question. Don't use bullet points. All right? No. Okay, now Singapore. We've got coal and lignite, and then other. Okay. Thailand, we've got petroleum and other. South Korea, Thailand, I might mention that it's the only one with no nuclear. Okay, if I'm good at writing, if I'm fast enough, I might mention this as well for my third point. And then for my fourth point, South Korea, nuclear and hydro wind. I might mention that it's the most dependent on hydro wind. And then Japan is the most dependent on nuclear. And then other. That's my fifth point. Okay, so let's do this. We'll work through it together, everybody, sentence by sentence, and I will look at what you're writing. So like Alexi right now for the overview is writing, at first blush, there's a tendency among given countries to rely on a certain type of power source. Meanwhile, other methods of energy production do not have major dependency. Okay, Alexi, it's okay. Don't use contractions. Do not use don't. Okay, do not. So academic writing, especially expository writing, does not use contractions. So like don't, won't, isn't. Okay. Alexi, you'll have to explain blush. I haven't used it I haven't seen it in this context. To me, it's unfamiliar, but that doesn't mean it's not right. I'd have to check if you wrote that in my exam. Okay. No, Domenico, I'd be careful with that, because other actually comes in as a heavy dependency for most countries, so it's not accurate. So you have to go point by point here, okay? Yeah, Alexi says blush means first glance. Now, again, students, just by using a word like blush doesn't mean you're going to get a high band score. They're not going, ooh, they use blush. No, no, no. It's much more important to focus on good information, okay? Good words don't get you good scores. Good information gets you good scores. Good information with good words gets you great scores, okay? So keep that in mind, all right? Let's discuss Malaysia, coal and lignite. Okay. And here is where we can use, firstly, looking at Malaysia, right? Firstly, looking at Malaysia, it is the country with the greatest dependency or reliance, if you don't want to use dependency again, on coal and lignite. At nearly 2/3 of its total power generated by this source. Okay. Now, nuclear, hydro, wind. If I'm doing the computer-based exam, I might come back and mention nuclear. Okay, this is where the computer-based exam does have an advantage, all right? Because it's easier to fit extra sentences into your writing. In the paper-based, it's tricky to do this. You have to have a little bit more foresight and a little bit more understanding of how much you can do in the given time. Okay, so here, if I'm in the computer-based exam, I would not write about nuclear, hydro, or other. Okay, I've mentioned the most important points. So firstly, looking at Malaysia, it is the country with the greatest reliance on coal and lignite at nearly 2/3 of its total power generated by this source. Notice how I didn't write the words 2/3, so I didn't do this. Okay, I just wrote 2/3 as a fraction. Okay, this is called a fraction. And I wrote it as a fraction because I don't want to waste time when I can use numbers in data interpretation. Okay. Secondly, Singapore gains roughly 80% of its power divided almost equally between coal and ignite, or lignite, sorry, I never pronounced that, and other sources. Okay. So a little bit of math, everybody, goes a long way. So notice how here, and this is the first time I'm writing this essay. I don't have a script or anything here. I'm literally interpreting the data just as you should. Now, I did learn statistics in my psychology classes, and I did learn first-year university math. So of course, that's helpful at this point. But this isn't considered advanced mathematics, okay? This is considered interpretation of data. So I can see here that, we've got 42, we've got 39, almost the same number, two of them together, 80%. Do I worry about these and these? Not so much. The reader can understand that the sources I don't mention are the ones that are likely the ones that are a lot less. Does that make sense, everybody? So is what I'm saying clear so far? Are you following my logic and my pattern here? Okay. How is everybody? I don't want to lose you, so it's not. I don't like. I don't want to be speaking to myself here. Okay. So I want. If you feel like, whoa, Adrian, this is too much. I don't know what's going on, or really, this is what we have to do. Ask me. Okay. All right. If you have less than 150 words, you lose marks. Okay, there's a feature called task completion, and that feature gets a certain number of points. If you don't have 150 words, you lose points. Okay. All right. A lot of you are giving me thumbs up. So Kaju says we are together. All right. Let's go to Thailand. So Thailand here relies on petroleum and other as well, making up also nearly 80%. Okay. So I'm going to report that. Follow with me here. Okay. And Alexi is writing. I'd love to see others write as well. Alexi says, in detail, we don't need the Alexi. In detail, Malaysia is the country that depends on coal and lignite. Nearly about 2/3 of all generated electricity is produced in this way or by that way. Sure. Very good, Alexi. It's different than mine and it's good. It makes sense. Okay. All right. So here, Thailand is similar to Singapore in that it has two dependencies. Okay. So similarly, Thailand also has a dichotomy. Dichotomy is a nice word. Dichotomy means twofold. Okay. Dichotomy of primary power, primary meaning the main, right? Namely petroleum and other sources. Okay. Also making up nearly 80% of its total at 36% and 42% respectively. Meaning that 36% is the petroleum and 42% is the other sources. Okay? Dichotomy here, Arby, means two categories. Dichotomy, two categories. Okay? All right. Okay, so notice how smoothly I'm moving along here, right? So I've done Malaysia, I've done Singapore. Now I'm on to South Korea. Okay. In contrast, right? South Korea, notice how I don't even write South. So I abbreviate South. I just do S Korea. I'm saving all the time, energy, spelling that I can whenever I can, which is not necessary to spell out. So in contrast, South Korea draws power the most in contrast to other countries. To the other four countries, right? Because there are probably some countries that draw a lot of power from hydro and wind, like Holland. South Korea draws power the most from hydro and wind. I'm going to keep it all small. They are titles, so if you write big, it's okay, but I think it looks better this way. So from hydro and wind at almost a half of the total. Okay, so 48%. It's nearly half the total there, right? Okay. And also generates much power, and also generates a third, right? This is 1/3. 33%. So also generates a third from nuclear. As well as generating a third of its power from nuclear plants. They're called nuclear power plants. Okay. All right. Now, last but not least, right? So finally, it's Japan. Finally. Japan has the greatest power output from nuclear at just under a half, right? So I don't need, notice how I'm not really writing a lot of percents. So far, I've only written the 36 and 42% because I'm interpreting, right? So here it's, look at that, it's 49%. It's just under a half, right? Okay. And you can write here, Ubadulayev says the percentage of petroleum products and other types of energy are consumed by Thailand, while the former consists 36% and the latter 42%, which is roughly twice as high as hydro and wind consumption. Ubadulayev, it's okay, but I feel that you're getting lost in words and details. All right? Chayani says, in greater detail, Chayani. Looking at Malaysia, the outstanding reliance on coal and lignite is over 2/3 of its total power, while in Singapore, the greatest dependency is around 80% on coal and lignite and others. Yeah, okay. All right. So finally, Japan has the greatest power output from nuclear at just under half of its requirements and depends on other sources for nearly for 39% of the remainder. Okay, so far so good. Let me see how many words I have here from the introduction to the analysis. So at this point, I have 222 words. Okay. So I'm already 75 over the minimum, and I should not be going much more than that, okay? So this is at 222 words. So notice how here I'm already, and I'm just reporting the most important, the questions always asked to describe and explain the key features. So I can't get stuck on all this data. One of the big problems that happens with tables is people start reporting like these little numbers here. Okay, nobody cares about that. Nobody cares about the little 5 and the 6. Notice how I even didn't do the 0 there, right? Okay. Everybody clear on that? Yeah? Okay. Alexander says, Japan's power usage structure looks to be the most risky in terms of possible ecological risk among the presented countries. That is not necessarily true, Alexander. It is if we're careless with the nuclear, but we can't formulate opinions in task 1, okay? If we have, for instance, Singapore here with coal and lignite, I mean, coal and lignite are constantly polluting the air. So it's very hard to measure which of these actually creates the most ecological damage in the long term. We can't do that. It's not our purpose here. We don't do environmental risk assessment, okay? That's not our job in the IELTS, Alexander, not environmental risk assessment, okay? All right. So now I want to do a quick summary because I can see that, oh, okay, I've got all the information. I've got 222 words. I've probably been writing for a good 16, 17 minutes. I need a couple of minutes to review, make sure I don't have any silly little mistakes. So I'm just going to do a summary. What's my summary? Well, this is my summary. I'll show you. Let's see if you have something similar. Think about it before you read mine. All right, that would be my summary. okay, if I'm giving a presentation to power companies here. So in summary, power output is dissimilar among these countries. So it's not similar, right? It's different. It's dissimilar. Among these countries, most of them, let's put a semicolon there, most of them, or you could put a period as well, most of them seem to have a significant dependence on other sources of power production not specified in this table. So I can see that this column seems to have all the double-digit numbers, which means that I should probably do some more research if this is my table and try to figure out what some of these other power sources might be, right? Because there seems to be quite a heavy dependence on other. Okay? All right, and then I read this. So then I go back to the top and I read, okay? Just check it with me, right? So this table contains 6 columns and 6 rows, which include 5 East Asian countries, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, South Korea, and Japan, and defines their power generation by percentages according to nuclear, coal and lignite, petroleum, hydro and wind, and other. At first glance, it becomes apparent that each of these countries varies in their greatest dependencies for generating most of their electrical output. In fact, each country seems to have 2 or 3 primary dependencies and a couple of sources that generate significantly less of the total. Firstly, looking at Malaysia, it is the country with the greatest reliance on coal and lignite, at nearly 2/3 of its total power generated by this source. Secondly, Singapore gains roughly 80% of its power, divided almost equally between coal and lignite and other sources. Similarly, Thailand also had, or has, because we don't have past here, we don't have the date. So Thailand also, so we have to keep it present tense. There's no date, okay? Similarly, Thailand also has a dichotomy of primary power, namely petroleum and other sources, also making up, similarly, or let's change this one to as well. I don't want to repeat also. Also making up nearly 80% of its total at 36 and 42% respectively. In contrast to the other 4 countries, South Korea draws power the most from hydro and wind at almost a half of the total, as well as generating 1/3 of its power from nuclear power plants. Okay, if I want to be concise, I would probably just not say nuclear power plants, but just say nuclear. Finally, Japan has the greatest power output from nuclear at just under half of its requirements and depends on other sources for 39% of the remainder. In summary, power output is dissimilar among these countries. Most of them seem to have a significant dependence on other sources of power production not specified by this table. Instead of in summary, I would actually like to say concisely stated, right? So in a short form, concisely stated, power output is dissimilar among these countries. Most of them seem to have a significant dependence on other sources of power production not specified by the table. This is not a conclusion icon. This is a summary. I'm simply stating a fact that I can clearly see in this table. All right. Now, this is your band 9. So this is what is meant when the examiner says it's an expert user of the English language. It means it's accurate language with good information. Okay? All right, that's what you want to work towards, students. That's what you want to do. I'm going to post this along with last week's task 2 on later today. So you'll see it up tomorrow. I've got a couple errands to run in the morning here, but we'll post this for you later today. So in the next 24 hours, check out the YouTube posts, and you're going to see this table with this band 9 example and let you kind of think about it again. Okay, keep writing, students. So I went at a good pace here. And again, make sure to join our premium IELTS package where you can get a walkthrough with the interactive course for all of these strategies. Click on that big red button that's just above my head there, and you'll get all the videos for bar charts, pie charts, line graphs. You have to know how to write for each of them. Okay, if you're writing increasing, decreasing in this table, it's going to be a disaster. Okay, this is not a line graph. There's no increasing, decreasing here. Do not write like a line graph because it will be incoherent. It will be a disaster. Okay, so you need to know how to write for each one. The full course will teach you that. Okay, for general IELTS, the full course will teach you how to write for letters. All right, so join it there. It's a one-time payment. It's not subscription. You get lifetime access. We help thousands of students. Alexi, Carolina, subscribers, Amra, Angel, members, thank you a ton for your participation and your questions. And I will be back tomorrow with speaking part 2, cue card strategies, cue card example, as well as speaking part 3, the most challenging specific questions and follow-up questions, okay? You're very welcome, RV. Thank you for subscribing. Romelia, yes, absolutely. I would love to make you a moderator. I'm still waiting for that email. You have to get a hold of me somehow, okay? So just respond to one of those emails that I sent, and I would love to have a chat with you and make you into a moderator. We just have to set it up. Really, I'm all for it, okay? All right. Students, have a lovely start to the weekend. See you on Saturday. See you tomorrow. Okay, I'm Adrian signing out from beautiful rainy Victoria today in Canada. Bye for now. Much love to all of you.